us low. They think that we don't know, so we gon' show them that this kingdom about to rise up. They wanna keep us low. They think that we don't know, so we gon' show them that this kingdom about to rise up. Rise, 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 rise. Every time I turn around.
You know, how do we get past this type of stuff? How can we help each other out as fellow man? You know what I mean?
Well, hold on. Let's get, first of all, we got this coach in the ring. We made this happen in like 10 seconds.
Don't tell them us.
Yeah, I don't know how table everything, but this was last minute, last 10 seconds. Tonight, you got this handsome gentleman sitting next to me. The King of Sting, the Count of Monte Cristo. How many names you got?
Too many to count.
Marvelous, right? But marvelous.
One that defines it all. That's marvelous.
This is a very, very dear friend of mine, Todd's. He means a lot to the legendary family and to my heart. He's a man of God. Amen. We have marvelous Marvin Bonds. And Marvin, I'm going to get into Marvin's little thing a little bit, but later on, remind me, we're going to talk about you. I heard you recently got your trunks pulled up to the rafters.
Well, we'll get to that later.
All right, I heard that was a beautiful ceremony they had for you.
It was absolutely awesome.
You know, with a last name like Marvin, with a name like Marvin Bonds in Rhode Island, we all know Marvin Bonds, right? We all know who's the Marvin Bonds to you?
He was my uncle.
He's your uncle.
Yeah.
No kidding, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Can you dunk on him?
Of course. Probably not now. I don't know. I can't do it now. But
20
in my day.
20 pounds ago?
Well, maybe 20 years ago.
10 years. So we're gonna chop it up a little bit. We're gonna talk about the year in review. We're gonna talk about 2020. We're gonna talk about our guests, and you know, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. Everybody's got their own unique story, and everybody is affected by things that happen in their life in a different way. What might be a small matter to me or Todd or Marvin, or a big matter could be somebody else's total rock bottom.
Yeah.
It could be somebody else's, my gerbil dies, your dog dies. I might love my gerbil as much, but why did I gotta use gerbil?
Yeah, I know.
Why do I gotta go there?
Coming out party. There we go.
Did I just?
Jared's coming out.
Yeah, but I didn't know you had a gerbil. What are you doing with the gerbil?
Yo, that's for a whole other show. I think.
Woo! I'm out of here. No.
All right, I'm done. What I meant was my hamster.
Even better.
Even better.
This hamster, he used to work at the Blue Oyster. Too.
Oh,
Yeah. My point is, guys, is that life. Welcome to life. Life happens, and and things happen in people's lives, and a lot of times, you know, we get hit with life so hard that we can't recover. And
And I think I'll add in, you know, everybody's got a story. Everybody's going through something. You know what I mean? So I mean, if we can encourage one person and change one person's life, I mean, that's the goal right there. You know what I mean? If we can put out, you know, we spent a lot of years and time of our life putting out some negative stuff. So let's switch that up and put out some good stuff. And put out some positive stuff so we could grow and learn and grow together as a people. You know what I mean?
So I have a question just for the people that are new viewers, you know, because the story is interesting to me, is how you guys started the podcast and what your premise of the podcast was, and how you led up to this particular point that we're in today.
can I handle this?
Yeah. I mean, I got my version of it. You know?
All right, so we're gonna tell each other's version.
Yeah.
Todd, you did a podcast here with Ron.
Yeah, well, it was Ron. It was a couple other guys that have a
MMA
podcast.
Right. So Ron asked me if I had a MMA champion that I knew, and of course my brother. So I said Todd, and Todd came and he did the interview here, and they loved you. You were funny. They said you had a good face for radio. What else? Wait, no, but you know, Todd was funny, and he was good with the, you know, they say the camera loved you, but I didn't believe it because then I sat next to you. But that's how it happened, and then Ron said we should do a podcast, and at first we were going to talk about just fighting in combat and not really boxing or MMA. We were going to talk
Just
about
whatever, football, combat. That's
you know, if you get a brawl at the we were going to talk about a fight in only
parking lot.
parking lot fights. We were just going to talk about combat in itself, and then
when Jared got beaten amateurs by some guy from Cumberland.
then
I was supposed to ask about that though.
oh yeah. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah, it happens to the best of them.
It's right, it does.
And everybody else.
Listen, that's what, but think about what you just said. Jared lost to a guy in Cumberland, and in order to win, you have to lose.
Absolutely.
You have to lose.
We started talking about that. We started rolling that direction.
The best of them, the best lose. And you have to fail to succeed. You have to go through it. You can't say, "Oh, Marvin, this is what worked for me," and you're like, like you've never been there. Yeah, you gotta go on that path.
No, I do notice that you guys have had some interesting guests on over the last 8 weeks or so. Has it been?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Well, we started with Dylan Stanley.
Yep.
Dylan, it's a funny story how I met Dylan. He was fighting on Rough and Rowdy, and he had made a video, and I didn't know Rough and Rowdy had came to Rhode Island yet. I didn't know they were here, but he was from Rhode Island, and he was banging on the Irish.
Whoa.
Well,
We haven't none of that around here.
me, I'm bored. I'm going through my phone at home, and I watched Dylan's video, and he's banging on the Irish, but he's Irish, so it was part of the.
It's okay.
It was part of what he had to do for the pot, I guess.
Yeah.
So I made a comment, and everybody started commenting like, "Oh, Jared, that's my buddy." So I'm like, "Oh, is this fighting Rhode Island?" So I realized it was Dylan, and then I invited him to the gym, and he's amazing. He's got an amazing story. Kid's a diabetic. He has to juggle maintaining his sugar while he has to weigh in, while he has to diet. That's taking insulin. It's a lot of work. It's you know, I see it. I see what he goes through.
So that was our first show, and we were having a bad connection with the sound. So we definitely plan on bringing him back in so you guys can really hear his story. It was very powerful and inspiring story.
Yeah.
And we definitely need to get that story out there and what he did and
We'll
how
circle.
he rised up out of the.
We're gonna circle back to Dylan to get him in here
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
another point. Then we had Joe Buddy, right?
Andre Sokumta.
Did you watch that one?
I didn't see that show.
No?
I didn't see that.
Andre's a UFC veteran. His father is my coach, and you know, in a very short period of time, he became my father. Like, I love this man, and Andre became my brother in a very short period of time. And he went through some pretty tough stuff. He talked about his son passing away, and like just having that struggle from EB and a very rare disease, and just what he had to go through and how he strived to do better. You know, Andre made it to the started fighting for a new promotion, which I think is going to be a pretty big promotion. Main event, he crushed it live on television. Won the main event against a very tough veteran from Brazil, and yeah, Andre's the man.
I really his story inspired me. How do you his son?
Yeah,
That's tough.
yeah, some things.
Listen, I mean, you know, to go through that, like I have my two sons. I don't know, man. I don't know.
So I met Andre and they invited me over, and I met the baby and things. Then all of a sudden, I think it was shortly after the baby passed away, I was devastated, right? So I'm driving around, you know, looking for this wake and funeral parlor, and I didn't make it. I was like, man, I wasn't there for him, and I only knew him for a short period of time, but we already, you know, we became cool, and it was just like, oh man, how do I tell him I wanted to be there? Like, I got lost looking for this place, and you know, I let him know, and he's just always been so understanding, this dude, man. Like, he's always been. It's just crazy. And then recently, you know, you're a Christian brother too.
Yeah.
Recently, they go to a Christian church out in Florida, and they were all just recently like baptized and like walking in the faith, man. It's powerful. Powerful.
He's quite unique to go through such a thing, and his family stays. You know,
Yeah,
families break
yeah.
apart
Oh,
after something
yeah.
like that. The mother and
Yeah.
father are never the same. It just destroys the ripple effect. Is what I'm talking about. The ripple effect.
Yep, they fought through it. Him and his wife. She's his
Amazing,
manager.
amazing.
She's his manager. She's like got his
Yeah.
back, like cooks for him, make sure he's ready. Like, just a solid bet. Like, most people don't make it, and a lot of times because they don't have that solid person behind them to make it to that next level of being an athlete and things like that. You know, and he had a very solid woman behind him. You know what I mean?
He was really inspiring, Andre.
Yeah.
Then we had your cousin Irish Mickey Ward.
No. Was it Mickey Ward?
Irish, right?
Absolutely.
No, it was
Pop Dukes.
Oh, his dad.
It was Pop Dukes.
Well, we're going in order now, but yeah, we had Dad, huh?
Yeah.
My old man.
Yeah, that was
Awesome
something
interview.
special right there.
What did you think of that interview?
I thought it was great. I thought your father was very transparent. You know, he didn't hold anything back. And the dialogue between the two of you, just, you know, you guys are, you know, cut from the same cloth, obviously.
He's funny.
Hilarious. And,
Yeah.
I thought it was a great show. I thought, especially at the end of the show when you read your letter that you had.
Yeah.
I thought that was very heartwarming and inspiring, and I think it was an awesome show. It's one of my favorites that I've seen so far.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Dad's a Brazilian, man. He's
Been through a lot.
you know, he's got such a mind, such a strong mind. You know, today's society. Let me just explain. I don't have to explain because they're probably listening out there. But in today's world, nobody goes and does 30 years in prison when they got a family of 5 kids. Nobody does that. Everybody's turning over and giving people up, and it happened all the way through. This man knew he had kids at home. He knew what it was. He knew what it was, and he still did it, standing on his head.
What's his saying though? He got a saying like,
Choices, you make them, you own them.
You make them, you own them. I respect that all the way. I respect that.
You know, you know, that's unheard of today. You don't get a guy that goes away for all that time, you know, and just dozens times, stay on his head, never just, you know. So there's and growing up for me, it was like, I always was like, he's never gonna come home. Is he coming home? When's he coming home?
Yeah,
Wait till my dad comes home. Wait, my dad's gonna. And it was just like constantly, when, you know. And then it just life. I didn't let it beat me up though. I didn't let it control my destiny.
Yeah.
I was determined to not become a victim of my circumstances. Or my thing was, I was always big on, I have a first name before a last. And my dad is my dad. There's no, there's no question and there's no replacing. But I'm
Especially
jealous.
since you look just like him.
How lucky is he? Jesus. So, yeah, but where was I? You got me. This guy. We're chopping up about dad. What else do we have?
Oh, yeah, that letter, that was something else, I think. I mean, I wish I had the, words to honestly write my father a letter like that, man, because that was something else.
It
man.
took me like 7 months. I've been writing little here,
Yeah.
there. But,
put together.
well, it has to be right because,
Yeah.
I'm not angry. And I never blame him for anything. And I don't point my finger and say, I don't do that. I'm not angry at mom. I'm not angry at dad. I put love first because through everything in my life, the one thing that I know for a fact through my own experience that I had to do it. Love wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Over
So no matter
Love
what,
conquers all.
and listen, we're gonna fall. We're gonna get caught up. Like that moment comes and we attack. We go back to what we know best. That automatic grab you, but then like, oh, that's the old me. I don't do that anymore. Let me. So it's a constant thing you have to constantly keep at your mind.
Yeah,
Keep it. You gotta keep your game tight. If you have a plan and you know where you are, what you want to do, that's mindful. It's called being mindful of your situation and where your choices. All right.
And then you had you had Mickey Ward.
Irish Mickey Ward.
My cousin.
Your cousin Irish Mickey was. Mickey, was he funny or what?
Great guy, great fighter. I was very interested in that interview because that's watching Mickey Ward
Growing
fight.
up.
Yeah, I mean I was a fan of his,
Yeah.
and to have him on a podcast in Rhode Island, even though he's right in Massachusetts, it still was a good thing to see where he's at, what he's doing now, and he had the movie, which was a great production. It was awesome.
He did a great job.
And so it was just good to hear his perspective on how the movie got made, and some of the things that he had to go through to get those big fights with Toro Gotti. And then I think somebody asked him if he was gonna do a comeback.
Yeah.
He said, but not for all the money in the world.
Yeah.
After those 3 fights, I would.
Well, he's also Mickey. I met Mickey in Concord, in Concord, New Hampshire. His dad was with my dad, and before he was Mickey Ward, but we met in visiting him. But he is donating his brain,
To science, yeah.
right?
Yeah. His brain, and he said, it was funny, he said,
Your brain?
I went home, got my brain out of the box. I took it out of the box and I was like, should I? I don't know.
well, that's what he said. He said, hey, Doc, this is going to be a good brain to study. I never used it.
Yeah. No, I went home, I was holding mine. I was like, should I, shouldn't I? Then I put it back. I said, I'll wait. Yeah, Mickey's awesome. He's a good friend of mine. Pound for pound, one of the toughest fighters ever. Greatest
He's
fights.
humble too, man.
He is humble.
Humble. He knew what he had, and he still was just humble. I love fighters like that. I love athletes like that. Just anybody that they have something to give, and they could boast on it and all that, but they just know who they are, and they carry on as themselves. You know what I mean?
He is
So
humble.
now both of you guys being former fighters, was there a point in time when the fame kind of got to you, the persona of, you know, who you were and what you did that have an impact on you? And how you dealt with people on the day-to-day?
You go first. I want to listen.
Well, for me, I kind of grew up real rough. You know what I mean? Poor, like house to house, like staying with my mom, staying with my aunt, my father. My father was always in and out of prison, and we didn't really spend a lot of time together growing up. So I kind of, and coming from Central Falls, you know, whatever people want to label me as, poor white trash. I'm French and Cape Verde. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess I'm white if you look at me, but whatever. People put their labels on things, but so my whole life, it's crazy. I actually didn't think I was good enough, but I had this thing in me that if you said I couldn't do it, I would work my butt off or just keep going at something. And like, I felt like I was good at it. You know, I had a love for it since I was a young kid. I was saying earlier, I think we're at it. Brian Barboza came to the training school and signed an autograph for me. And I was in his cell that he stayed in. So he came into my room and I was excited. I was like, yeah, I want to be a boxer. And, you know, through life, mistakes, this and that. So when I actually started really putting 100% in, I started seeing results. And like, nobody could beat me at this time. You know what I mean? I was training like twice a day, 6 days a week. And that's when I became like #1 in New England, won the first title for MMA in Rhode Island, the CES. But and then I still had in the back of my mind, like I didn't deserve it. I wasn't good enough for this because going in that direction, all I could see was like, getting to that next level and being successful at something. And it was weird, man. I feel like I sabotaged myself a little bit, like in my mind going into certain fights where it was like, second guessing myself and not really truly believing in myself because of where I came from. Like I was supposed to be like people I grew up around, that a lot of them dead in jail or just walking around messed up. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like that was my lot and I kind of sabotaged myself. And it wasn't until like, after towards the end when I was starting thinking about retirement and things like that, I was like, I realized that I sabotaged myself. You know what I mean?
So the actual, because in a small state like Rhode Island, people, Jared told me you were one of the first MMA champions to come out of the state. Yeah. So it's a heavy burden to carry. So how did that affect you as far as like the fame and the notoriety?
So I like to say I was like a Rocky story. Like I probably wasn't supposed to make it, and if I had, honestly, but that's how I felt. That's how I felt, bro.
Wait. Growing up, all I heard was how did Jay beat this guy?
Yeah, but you don't hear that at home. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear that with your friends. But I had, like Rocky, a lot of people, I had good friends and I had a good back, I had good family and like a good support group when I was doing these things. Like a lot of people tell me nowadays, like, oh, I miss the fights because that's when everybody used to get together instead of a wake or instead of, a family gathering that really never happens. It's like, everybody that was like an extra, thing where everybody got together, went out, had a good time and could cheer on. So I had a good support group in that sense on the night of the fight or a lot of people buy tickets off me. And so it was that. But at the same time, it was like in the industry itself, like I'll show you videos like, oh, Todd's not going to beat Brett O'Terry. Todd's not going to beat Woody Weatherby. Todd's not going to beat whoever, Elias Rivera, like all these guys who I beat, you know what I'm saying? And so in the industry itself, it was like I was supposed to lose, but I proved them wrong when I did the right thing. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm interested to hear Jared telling us a story, and do we have to take a break first?
Yeah, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to give you how and if boxing in the name and the whole Tillinghast way, if it did or if it didn't affect my ego.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back.
7 knockouts with 11 defeats while winning a world championship title. From Lowell, Massachusetts.
Mickey Ward's playing? Is Mickey Ward playing?
Yeah.
No, we're on.
We're
The
on.
intro?
Yes.
Right? Is the intro to Mickey Ward playing?
No, we're on.
We're not.
It's playing, but we see us.
Irish Mickey.
It's playing right now.
I think we're on, Mark. Is it charging?
What's up, folks? We're back.
Yes, we gotta make sure this thing's charging. Marvin asked an interesting question. You wanna say what the question? Ask it again so
I was
everybody
just
knows what we.
curious, you know, coming from a small state and a small area like the Providence area, being a professional fighter and having the name that you have, did that affect you and you know, your persona and how you dealt with people on a day-to-day basis? You know, because you know, you can imagine somebody like at the highest level, like a Roy Jones or Mike Tyson, the pressure and the people wanting to be next to them. So how did that affect you coming up, or if it did affect you coming up as a fighter?
I was very different in that sense because I was Jared Tillinghast. I always felt it necessary to take a back seat. Like I would get in the car with my friends and I would sit in the back seat of the car and be like, "Oh no, JT, don't you want the front?" And everybody would get in the back right away. I'd just leave the front open.
10 guys in the back seat.
Everybody, yeah, the guys are jumping in the trunk.
Toyota point 8.
I get in the back seat. No, seriously. So I always said to myself, like, less is more. Like I haven't, just because I've gotten to this point, I still look at it like, I always said to myself, like, I won Golden Glove titles. I turned pro. I won, you know, the championships. But I always said, I've accomplished nothing. Because I always said to myself, when I accomplish this much, it means I got nowhere to go. And so I always wanted to grow. So I felt like if I kept myself back, like I stayed back in kindergarten. I always say it, like I never got out of kindergarten because if I go to first grade, I know too much.
That explains a lot. Yeah, never got out of kindergarten.
There's a couple of things. No, but I always wanted to hold myself back. I always felt it necessary to my fighting would do the talking, the way I prepare for things, the way I do things. I kind of like, you know, maybe a few nights under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the guy who was out there, he'd been, you know, that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But I think for the most part, I didn't give a shit. I was just like, I didn't care. I didn't really care about what everybody thought. I never did. I was like, you know, everybody worried about what people thought. And I think probably there may have been at times where, you know, Jared telling us, the boxer,
Right.
you know, you said something.
Well, I said, yeah, I knew Jared Tillinghast before I knew Jared Tillinghast. You know, now I talk to you, I interact with you. Before I didn't know who you were, but I knew who you were.
That makes a lot of see. I get that a lot. You meet somebody from the I know Jared Tillinghast. How do you know me? I never talked to you a day in my life. I never met you, but you heard about me.
Right.
So you know me.
Right.
So what happened? Where were we when you first saw me?
I think and this goes way back, you know, 'cause the first time I saw you might have been in a nightclub.
Probably, yeah.
And I can remember somebody tapping me on the arm and saying, "Oh, that's Jared Tillinghast." And I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he's a boxer, and you know they give you the whole backdrop. I'm like, "Oh, okay, so that's the guy you don't want to."
Yeah, that's
We're
not picking fights with him.
that way, you know, he comes by, hey, what's up, my
Hey,
man?
sir.
See, you
Have
know.
a good night.
So that was the you know the persona. And then I think you know I used to go to a lot of the fights, and I would see you at the fights. And I can remember vividly, just not that long ago, a few years back, I was at Twin River.
I think
at
I
a fight,
remember.
and you're walking through, and it was like the president of the United States. Literally, like guys would like jump out of their seats and shake his hand and hug him. And they took him literally to get from one side of the ring to
yeah,
where he wanted
yeah.
to go to sit like 20 minutes from all,
Yeah.
everybody paying their respects,
Yeah.
which is, you know,
The
it's a
worst thing you
testimony.
could do is bring a date.
That's when I had stamina and I could go from one side of the room. When I had stamina, I could go from one side of the room to the other. I don't do that anymore. I
Yeah.
just stay
But so
home.
you don't think during those years with everybody with the, even was fear or was respect because of what you know, who you were and what you did, you didn't think that had any impact on you
I mean,
internally? Or?
yeah, I mean, how does it not?
Right, right. Exactly.
How does it not have an impact? Like, was I like acting on it? Was I recognizing it? No, because I was such an animal.
Right.
I was such an animal. When we were kids, I was like, you don't look at me the wrong way. Like, you couldn't pick your eyes up and glance at me the wrong way if I'm off, if I'm having a bad day. I was just like 0 to 100 in 1 second, and then that 100 is.
I
This
seen
is
the,
gonna- this is
I
gonna
seen the
sound
opposite though. I seen the opposite before I interviewed.
Well, but when
I seen a couple things where it was like, you know, just whatever, I'm just out having a good time.
I'm a Gemini, I've had moments.
And people
I don't know
push
who
in.
shows up. It's one day,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
so it depends on
Yeah.
what a girlfriend argued with that day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I get it.
So I can remember one time I was down at the Strand Theater and they had these, you probably don't know this, you know? And they had these like tough man competition things.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna get it, you know, I was down
Did
there.
one?
I did too.
Oh,
So I was down there with my buddy, he just got in there and got his brains beat out. And so I'm sitting there, you know, just kind of watching the show. And here comes Jared. He's not gonna remember this, but here comes Jared. He walks by me and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, how come you're not in there?" I was like, "Nah, man, I'm just going." Yeah, because the next thing I'm thinking he's gonna ask me to get him on his side. I'm good, man. I'm good.
That was, you want to laugh. They were doing the fights at the Strand, and it was like a rough and rowdy type of set. You'd go down and they sign
You just
up.
sign up, right?
Sign
Yeah.
up. They pay you somebody a week.
All my friends were like, Todd, you gotta go down there, you'll kill everybody. And I
So
was like,
my dear friend AJ DeFazio, he signed up. That's why I was down there. So
Okay.
he signed up and he said, "Yeah, I signed up. I'm gonna fight tonight down the Strand." So I'm like, "All right, I'm coming with you." So they tried to match him up and they couldn't get somebody to match his weight.
yeah.
So I was acting like his manager. Mom would see me, right? I was moving around. AJ, this is true story, right? I'm moving around, and so they offer an opponent who had 20 pounds on him. But I looked at him and I was like, I will take it. You know, I went over, I said, AJ, we're fighting this guy. He's a little bigger, but just stay on the outside of your jab and hooks. He didn't throw a hook the whole fight, but he throws some 1-2s. He beat him. But right before the fight, we're outside the ring. True story. AJ goes in his pocket, he puts a cigarette in his mouth, and he lights it, all right? I take the cigarette out of his mouth and I smack him. It was just a reaction because I was like, poof, pow. What are you doing? I'm acting like it's a big fight. I'm like, I'm in Russia
You're a manager.
fighting Drago, and I'm like training. It was, yeah. He looked at me. He's like, all right.
I'm drunk. Let's
Yeah.
go in there and fight.
No, it was a good event, but yeah, Mom,
Yeah, I
that's
remember.
funny.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. They got
Yeah.
rid of that soon after, I think.
I think it was.
Yeah, I think
liability
people were going,
insurance.
yeah, they didn't have
they started getting
insurance.
trying to
sneak
amateur
in.
fighters to get little smokers. They would throw
Yeah.
them in there.
I had a
Guys
friend-
20 amateur fights, 30 amateur fights, and it
Yeah.
started getting crazy.
Yeah.
I had a friend that did a couple.
Oh yeah.
Napoleon. Nappy.
Did he do that?
He
down
came
there?
and said, Todd, I just went over there, I just went in there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think he did one, and everybody was like, nah.
They had some guy named Manny. I forget his name. Manny something. This guy was jacked.
Wait, Manny.
Manny.
Muscle.
Yeah, he was Alves or Albert. I can't remember his name, but he was so
That
big.
matters.
You know, like your height, but
Yeah.
really, and he was
Was
just
it Manny
destroying. He was good.
Nah, Manny wouldn't have did that. Was it
that?
Manny now?
Naps.
No way.
Could have. He was under some kickboxing guy or something.
No way.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, he went down there and he did like 3 weeks in a row. Then they kind of finally was like, look,
Yeah, we ain't
you
letting
can't.
this guy in.
He was just destroying.
He might have.
Yeah, he
That
came
was
down like-
before I was even with him.
Yeah.
I was with Berto, his uncle. At BNF.
So that's what happens with these cards. You get somebody brand new off the street that just is, blind man can throw punches. You know what
Well,
I
they
mean?
were drunk too, I heard.
Well, yeah.
Because that's what they were telling me. Hey, go down there. They're drinking. They don't even know.
Yeah, because they
They
didn't
can't
check
fight
to see if it was an
I'm
amateur.
over
guy,
here
a
like,
pro, nothing.
I'm like over here like training every day, boxing.
Yeah, you're gonna go get in the ring with somebody that, that's why people get knocked out.
Yeah, that's why insurance got.
Well,
Cut off.
think about it. The guy on the street, the average guy in the street, can't take that punch on the chin.
Well, they don't even
Like,
know it's coming.
no, but they can't take it because they're
They don't
not.
understand
You
it.
got to train your body for that. It's
Yeah.
months of preparation, but sparring, getting hit. You can't just be a street guy out here and get hit on the chin like that. It's
Well, there's levels. Who was saying that there's levels to it? There's a guy that doesn't train or fight, then there's a guy that trains, then there's an amateur fighter, then there's a pro fighter, and then there's a world class pro fighter. There's levels, levels and levels to it. So.
all right. So Mom, we let me just say that the last few guests we had Hector Camacho Jr. Hector
Love that guy.
is a good.
He was great.
He's awesome. Hector's a good friend.
Funny stories with the families and stuff.
Hector's a good boy. We had the original VIG, Billy Vigent.
Yep.
He was coming in with that masterpiece. Who else do we have? One more. Oh, Damon Feldman.
Damon Feldman, yep.
Celebrity boxing guru.
Yeah.
Damon's a great friend of mine.
That was a special guest.
He is killing it
Yeah.
in Hollywood. Mario, I need to hook you up with my friend Damon.
You can get him on the
Yeah,
show.
Hollywood is right
Have him
here.
fight Jennifer Lopez's ex.
Yeah. We're gonna change. Well, listen, he's Marvin Barnes. We
Yeah,
can do
yeah.
something. Celebrity boxing.
And the boxing
Hand
models
models.
a lot.
Listen, hand model champion
There we
3
go.
times. Show him your hands.
There you go.
He does things. Marvin,
What was my amateur record again? Just so the audience.
well, we pulled his trunks up to the rafters, right? The ceremony we had.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Marvin came in and he come in with his boxing trunks when he fought amateur. Well, his amateur record was 75 and 0 with like been stopped how many times? 65 times. Marvin's got a marvelous record. But it's not about his record. Look, he's still in one piece.
There you go.
Look, you still
and
like
I got one fighter actually won, so he's got the record. It was 175. And,
Oh, geez.
175 and what?
Well, we don't want to get to the rest of it. We just leave that out.
But anyway, even with his stellar amateur career, he had his trunks with him. And he brought him in and he's like, hey, JP, look at these things. And I snatched the ball from right there. He went up, I put him on the rope. I shut the whole gym down. We had the music playing. We had a big ceremony. I raised his trunks. They're in
I
the
felt like I was
right.
at the dunk.
Right?
So, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
You felt like you were at the old Boston Garden.
Legendary Hall of Fame.
Yeah, get my jersey retired.
Getting your jersey retired. I got pictures to come.
Oh boy.
He was so happy.
He said he was so happy.
He really was. Yeah, we had some really amazing guests on so far, right? We've been doing really well with that. We also my goals are for just to name a few of the upcoming people for 2021. We're gonna have on We Rise. I like Anthony Acquisto. Anthony is a young writer, director. The kid's amazing. Anthony's a dear friend of mine. He's got some boxing skills. He just is a good dad, single dad, but his work is very inspiring and he's got a good story. We got yours truly, Alex Sandoval. He might be here somewhere. Alex is in here tonight. Alex,
Videographer. He's the
come
man
on,
making.
this guy,
He's done music videos for my son.
Alex.
I mean, it might be tough getting him on. He doesn't like to be. He likes to be behind the camera.
Yeah, he does, but we get him on. We tie him up.
We're gonna work on it.
We tell him we got a coach here, he'll be here. He loves that. So we're gonna do Alex Sandoval. If you don't know who he is, check him out. Benny Blades, Blades' son podcast. We're gonna have Benny on. Jason Estrada, another local kid. Judge Frank Caprio, Jimmy Birchfield, Rich Caprio. There's so many Rhode Islanders that that I want to stay home.
I got some.
You know,
I got some.
We had a lot of
some
good
home
stories.
guys that
If I forgot you out there, and if there's anybody,
I'm
guys,
working on.
yeah, if there's anybody
Rob
that,
Font, because we missed out on him.
yeah,
We're
if
gonna
they-
get him in.
anybody watching, if you have, any ideas and people that have a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
story, let us know. We'll be definitely interested.
Derek Brunson. I'm working on that one. He said he's coming in. And Sean Sariano.
Nice.
Sean Sariano was the first one that is a Rhode Island native that made it to the UFC.
What do you think, Marvin? I know you got a few heavies, DJ Finesse.
Yep.
We're gonna have Finesse
I
on.
saw Ed Cooley's name on here somewhere.
Ed Cooley. Trying to get Ed Cooley. We want to get like local guys. Ed Cooley. Look at his story.
Yeah.
Central-
Local guy from around my neighborhood.
Guy from your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Grew up in, where'd you grow up?
Southside.
Grew up in Southside. We
Yeah.
come right from your
Your
neighborhood.
pops.
Ed Cooley's the story, huh? Then he played for Central.
Correct.
Did they play in that championship game against Classical? Yeah. Was it his last year?
Yeah, I think they won the state title.
They won
if I'm
the
not
state
mistaken,
title.
yes. That was back in the good old days when they had games done at the Civic Center and they'd be on TV,
Yeah.
Channel 10. It was awesome back then.
The good old days,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Before social media,
All that good
before you
stuff,
could
yeah.
sit down in front of a phone and have a podcast. It was, right? We'd have to meet at the park every day
Mhm.
at 6:00 because we know, you got to call the rotary phone and things like. And then
Yeah.
it's busy. How about the rotary phones? Then they're busy and you got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
What else do we have coming up, guys? Let's talk about. I wanted to talk about the impact. Marvin, let's start with you. Like 2020.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, it's been a difficult year, I'm sure, for a lot of people. Even myself, losing my employment in the last couple of months. Then I had an injury with the knee that might need some surgery. So a lot of things that are happening that people want to just put behind them because 2020 has been so difficult with the shutdown of businesses and so on and so forth. But, it brought me back to the beginning of the pandemic. I was down working at the Department of Labor and Training, answering phones, trying to help with all the claims because, the state had so many people filing for unemployment at the time. And I remember just listening to people call in, crying on the phone, literally in tears because they had no money, they had no food. Women calling saying, "Hey, I have 3 children at home. I got $20 in my account. I haven't got my unemployment check." And that was heartbreaking, So what it showed me at that time is A, you got to count your blessings, right? You got to be happy for what you have, and B, things. I know it sounds cliche, but things could always be worse. You might think you have it hard. You might think it's the worst thing that could ever happen. But trust me, there's so much worse that could happen to you.
Yeah.
So be grateful for what you have. And I try to tell people, don't spend a lot of time in the rearview mirror looking back at what did happen. Try to embrace where you're at and where you're trying to go.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely.
So
What about you, Jad? What's
well, I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, remember? We came in and we was talking about it. It was like nothing to us, and and then it just kept escalating. It just kind of it almost like you walk out of your house and it's like snow is dumping on you and it just keeps going. It just doesn't stop. And the next thing you know, you're like underneath the snow and
avalanche effect?
it's like, and then there's so many reasons. Think about this now, that like 2020, right? Like everybody's life fell apart in some capacity. The distancing, people dying, there's a ripple effect and it's so bad. But, everybody kind of like just had a reason or an excuse to say,
Cash out.
Give
Cash
up,
out.
give up.
to cash out, And my approach was, like I was just starting to get my kids more, for instance. So when I would pick them up, it was soccer, here, there. So me getting my kids, like, I was getting them 3 days a week, but it was more or less kind of like always running around, and I didn't really have any father-son time to where I could get to, where I could get to know my babies. Like I wanted to, like, so, when that happened, everything stopped. And then it was just me and the boys.
We had nowhere to go.
Nothing to do. So we would snuggle every day, and every time we were together,
So it was a blessing in disguise.
it's a blessing in disguise. And whatever else comes with it, I'm resilient. I'll come back from it. Whatever it is, bring it on. It happened, but it happened to everybody.
Yeah.
So what's your excuse? Because it happened to you, it happened to everybody. Everybody, it's affected somebody in some way. I always, through the whole thing, I didn't get down. I was like, okay, I'll be back. It's kind of, so I there was so many blessings that came out of it. I really didn't think negatively about it at all. I just kind of, I was like, we got to find something good out of it. There's got to be some positive out of it. And there was so many good positive things that came out of 2020. Yeah, they closed businesses. There's a lot of things that happened, but I kind of stayed in my circle. I protected the people I love, and but I stayed tight. We got a tight thing. So
Yeah.
Money time.
I think that, so when it first happened, I'm going to church every week. I'm in my word. I mean, we slip, we fall, none of us are perfect. But I had a good, I think when it first happened, I was working for a company. I was good. We kept working. I'm in construction, so it's not like, I guess it's an essential job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were still working everything. So I didn't really put a lot, because a lot didn't change dramatically for me. Except like, going to the stores, the mask and all that stuff. And I was like, whatever, if it makes other people feel comfortable, this and that, I'm just going to do it. But then it wasn't up until maybe like a few weeks ago, I started noticing that the church has been closed down, and I've been watching church from Zoom or reading the Bible on my own, things like that. You know what I mean? But, it really it caused a big separation with, if you're, spiritual, whatever. And some, you build with certain people, and it kind of broke up teams for me. You know what I mean? So it was like shut my church down. A lot of people at my church started getting COVID. And so it was like, all right, we're not going to go there anymore. But at first it's like, we have faith, so we're not just going to let this thing scare us and shut us down, of course. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I carried on like per usual, you know what I mean? But then it was like, all right, I think I felt like I think I took that for granted, that I could just get up and go to church on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now it's like on Zoom, but it's not really as personal. So I started believing, I believe it's a spiritual attack too, like to cause division, divide and conquer. You know what I'm saying? So I really started feeling like that recently, because I'm failing in certain areas that I was working on and being built in, but I started really failing in these certain areas, and it was like I felt I was on like a train of momentum. Like I linked up with a new brother in Christ, and we was going there, like this church, that church, building, meeting new people, and like, growing and building together. And I was like, God's doing something and this and that, and it was like, I think I took it for granted. And then now this separation came in recently. I've been really like seeing it. So it's like, at the end of the day, I feel like, when you do have those chances and opportunities to build and be around these people you care about, and, fellowship and things, take those opportunities and go with them. But I mean, at the same time, I still get on my knees in the morning. I thank God for my breath and another day. And sometimes I even thank Him for my obstacles, and like, the COVID, it brought people together that had to deal with each other, because we couldn't go out and we couldn't drink and we couldn't, go to a club or no sports, and like you couldn't get away. So now you really gotta deal with each other and see, do you even really belong under the same roof? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with yourself? Are you building each other up, or are you tearing each other apart? So now the domestic violence went through the roof, and like all these issues started like coming out of the woodworks.
It seems like when families had to had no choice but to be together is when they actually fell apart.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but no, with some. But then at the same time, then it's like, you know, you see like my son. I'm like, what is he do? You know, still bringing friends over. This, that. I told him not to do that. So you start seeing where you're lacking, and I should be like, you know, having more boundaries and instructions, and like, you know, being a better father in a sense where it's like, you know, this is what we got to do. You know what I'm saying?
It actually forced people to have to parent.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the first time,
Yeah, I
probably
wasn't a teacher.
in a long time, because there was no school.
Yeah.
You had the homeschool.
Yeah.
You had to be around your children all day, every day. And I mean, when I was working, there was people coming in stressed out because they're like, "Oh, my kids are driving me crazy," because they're not used to being around them all the time, or like you said, being with your significant other and so on.
And then
so,
when somebody dies, you're like, whoa, right? What did I do? I wasted time. I didn't say hi to them. Like, how many people probably said that this year? Like, I think it's 400,000 more people died this year than the average
I thought that, well,
annually.
yeah, but the flu kills the same amount of people.
No. But this specific thing, it raised the death toll and average of people itself. It was like 400,000 people more. You know what I mean? Or whatever. It was something around that number. But it's like, now we got to self-reflect. Like, man, like I'm taking all this stuff for granted. And, you know, I'm taking church for granted. Like, that's crazy to me. You know what I mean? Some weeks you're like, oh, I'm tired. Or you go show up to church late. You don't really talk to people who you should be talking to or whatever. You know, going wherever you go. Oh, man, I haven't seen him in a while.
I think that everyday life, we don't realize that everyday life is so fast, and we're just constantly going, we're constantly moving, we're constantly going from point A to point B. So it's like you wake up, it's like bing, 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 sleep, do it all over again, and it becomes such a routine after so long that it's like pulling the plug.
Right.
Now you gotta face that reality stuff, family stuff. To me, I loved it. I was like, yes.
Yeah, until the gym shuts down.
They shut it down.
No, that's what I'm saying. You loved it until now. It's like, damn,
No, like, you know,
can't be around these people that I care about right now. I'm building a family over here.
well, I was happy with my kids. I was happy.
Yes,
I
because
I
you
wasn't.
focusing on.
I focused on.
On the right
I said,
things.
let's see where's the pluses, where's the positives I can take out of it, and that time with my children is like that. You know, it wouldn't have ever happened if this didn't happen. I wouldn't have been as tight with them still, because it would still be running them all over the country and never really spending quality time.
Yeah.
So like, you know, there was parents that didn't know how to act because they had to be home. And there was me who was like, all right, I got my sleeping bag.
Thank you.
You know, every day it's something different with them, and it was like a different movie, and we just
So I
spending
guess
family time.
that goes into the next point or topic is, what positive thing did you get out of 2020 that will help you in moving into the new year? So you're saying that what did you get out of 2020 that you can say, with all the adversity, with all the things happening, this positive thing still came out of it, and now I can use that and build on that moving forward?
I always said, be grateful and look for something that, you know, the one thing I really stuck to was like, you know, I'm working on the force sobriety, but that all really helps. And it just kind of, but the one thing I stayed focused on is I tried this. It was very difficult. It wasn't easy. But an old wise owl told me, he said, not everybody can do it. Not everybody can do it, but if you can do it, and you can do it, like, this is when your life starts to change. If you could go 24 hours, I challenge anyone out there.
I like this.
If you could go 24 hours without complaining or making an excuse,
Making it someone else's fault.
that's making an excuse. You know, I did this because you did that. Or, you know, I stubbed my toe. Like, no complaining, no excuses. It's not easy. You'll find yourself complaining about the most minute things. You know, you just every day you say, you slam the cabinet door in the house and you complain about something that happened in the living room. So it's very mindful to go 24 hours without complaining or making an excuse. So I didn't have anything to complain about because even though the world's craving it around us, I was like, I can't complain. I can't make an excuse.
Yeah.
So I kind of just like,
Forced to focus on
I forced to stay,
Right thing.
I forced to stay in good energy and
Self-reflect.
positive.
No, I spoke to Todd about this yesterday. Sometime I think what COVID probably gave us the opportunity to do is to sit back and reflect. You know, because sometimes we're just always moving. We never take an opportunity to sit and reflect on the good things that we have going on in our life, the positive things, like, you know, the things like you said we take for granted, like having a roof over your head, having food on the table, you know, money in the bank, all the things that we're so used to and accustomed to. And I think, again, not complaining, but looking back and sitting back and saying, I got all these blessings coming my way. And, you know, we focus on those things and build on those things.
There's definitely we gotta go to commercial in 2 minutes.
No. I 7:40, so we gotta start closing up. But I got
a message of the day.
you know it. Let's go. Let's just be thankful, folks, for what we got.
Let's be grateful. Find something to stay positive. Find something to lift you up. You know, if you're in a good situation, don't worry, it will change. If you're in a bad situation, don't worry, it will change.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way you're thinking about it. If
Yeah.
you change the way you think about something, it will change the way you feel about it.
Stop blocking your.
He just took a cheat. You wrote that down? $29.95 for that quote.
I did. Stop blocking your blessings.
I was lowballing you too.
All right, ready? So Joshua 1:9. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou go. Bang.
Amen.
Amen.
Everywhere you go, take them with you. You know, stand in there, stand strong. So my thing that I took is that I always try to take is it's either a lesson or a blessing, and it's always a blessing. Even the lesson is a blessing because that makes up your makeup of who you are. When you go through some things and what you did with it, it becomes who you are.
Yeah.
So I guess we can look at it this way. After all the negative things that happened in 2020, we can only go positive.
Right. Is there any way to go?
Yeah.
So what do we do now?
Listen,
What do we do though?
wait. Before Marvin,
We gotta get him in on
eyebrows,
this.
Marvin. I'm about to
We gotta
shave
get
you.
him in on
I'm gonna
this.
shave your eyebrows with mayonnaise. But the where was I going with this?
We gotta get him in on it.
No.
2021.
Jeez.
Lessons and blessings, brother.
Yeah. Oh, don't be afraid of your testimony. That's what I wanted to say. Growing up and coming up, I was always afraid of my testimony. I always wanted to, like, you know, hide. Don't be afraid of your testimony. You can help somebody. Your testimony can save somebody.
Can you see that?
So, Marvin, you want to lead?
Can you see that guy in there?
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, Marvelous Marvin Bonds. Yours
We
truly,
rise.
Providence native.
SFBN, Rhode Island.
Happy New Year. We'll see you in
Let's go.
2021.
Let's go.
How'd that go?
They wanna keep us low. They think that we don't know. So we gon' show them that this kingdom